Welcome to the meeting today, and I just note the lateness of Gavin Iron, who will join us after his briefing regarding the border breach over the last couple of days. So he will join us when he can. But otherwise, I note that there are no further apologies or leaves of absence. So now moving to...
if we just need to move for a second.
Yeah, sorry, I was just about to do that. Thanks, David. Second, Garth. All those in favour, key my aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Just turning to the confirmation of status of agenda, which you have before you. You will note at 6.3, which refers to the Waters Reform Engagement Period feedback, that should be deferred to the public excluded agenda. So in moving the confirmation of agenda, that includes the exclusion of 6.3 to the public excluded agenda. Any questions on that? If not, can I have somebody move and second the agenda, please? Thanks, Garth. Second, David. All those in favour, key my aye. Carl, carried. Thank you. Right. Disclosures of interest are there for your noting, and please let Matt know if you if that needs to be updated. Otherwise, you know the drill. If there is a conflict that in relation to any of these agenda items, you will disclose it either now or at the relevant time during the agenda. So can I have somebody move and second the receipt of the register of interest? Thanks, David. I'm happy to second that. All those in favour, key my aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Right, moving now to the confirmation of the minutes of the 10th of August. Just before we do that, just want to acknowledge David and Garth for the quorum that was established for that meeting, and in particular, Garth, the very challenging circumstances you found yourself in on that day, given the electricity crisis that was happening across the country, but more particularly in your area. Both of you, given you were the only two at the meeting, are you happy to approve the minutes of the 10th of August?
Yes.
Thank you. David moved, Garth second. All those in favour, key my aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Action register, page 19.
Yes, would you like me to go through that, Rocky?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the first item, the Te Kaupapa Water Take Consent Strategy. So that is underway. You met Richard at the last meeting, who is from Richard Bax Consulting, who's council's representative helping with that process. There has been a meeting. There was another meeting scheduled for today with Waikato Regional Council. Unfortunately, I think that's just been delayed because they're not doing face-to-face, and one of the association members prefers face-to-face, so we're just trying to figure out an alternative for that. And yeah, we'll have continuing support from our representative at that, working closely with Te Kaupapa Water Association. So that will be ongoing for some time, effectively.
Okay, and the other items there.
So the next item on the investigation into the engagement with Mana Whenua Iwi and the Community Partnership Manager. So Waikato Tainui, we have requested further engagement on the matter, and we're still to recognise how the time commitment could be agreed with council. The next one, the draft letter to the Minister, I understand that has been drafted and sent, and there is a Zoom meeting scheduled for tomorrow with Minister Mahuta and the board to discuss. The remaining item on the Raglan wastewater treatment plant, testing was delayed due to COVID and is due to recommence in September.
I can speak to that briefly if you want. Carol?
Yes, please, Matt.
So I just wanted to clarify what that was as well. So what we're actually doing is this is part of the modelling exercise around the proposals that we're putting forward for the future consent. So what we're essentially doing is trying to gain a much better understanding of the nature of the waste and how that would apply to drip feed to land discharges. So the testing restarted on Friday last week. So we did the first sample of testing, and that'll be part of quite an ongoing assessment of the waste to understand how that will be modelled for some of the proposals that we're putting through for the future consent, and we'll be continuing to sample and then start modelling quite soon. So just wanted to clarify exactly what that was for. No questions.
Would we move that one to operational BAU, Ruka, or would you like it left on the action register?
Apologies, there's a big truck driven down my driveway, so if you can hear all that noise in the background, yes, as part of the BAU operational update, that's fine. Thanks, Carol.
Okay, and thank you, Matt. The next item around the Te Kaupara and capitals, there was a capital investment. There was a paper that was we spoke at out of cycle recently, and it also went to council yesterday and was approved. And the last item, we'll have that report to you for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Carol. Directors, any questions, comments on the action register? David?
Yeah, just one, Carol, just for clarification. If we just back up to that second one down, it's noted there that Sam was going to present the vision to the next meeting of the board. It's obviously not on the agenda today. Is that deferred until the next meeting, or what is happening with regard to that?
I would need to follow up with Sam and Gavin on that one. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay, just make sure we don't lose it off the action register, and presumably it can happen at the next meeting.
Yep, so maybe when Gavin's able to join us, if we maybe just get an update from him.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
Jackie here. Sorry, my camera is not working, which is why you can't see me. But I've got a question just on the same point. Just the timing, I suppose, that the length of time that item's been on the action list, and just keen to understand, I guess, what we're doing to engage with Waikato Tainui, because the same comments have been on there for quite some time. And it would be good to get those groups set up.
Good point, Jackie. When Gavin comes back into the meeting, we will get an update from him, given Carol's comment earlier. Okay. So, yeah. And yeah, I'm assuming, Carol, that's you're not over that to be able to give a full update. So we'll.
No, I thought that Kevin had that under control. So he would have spoken to it if he was here. So I'm a little bit blind on that one. Sorry.
No, that's fine. We'll raise it when Gavin arrives. Okay. So subject to further clarification on action item 2, can I have somebody move and second a receipt of the action register? Thanks, David. Second, Garth. All those in favour? Kimai, aye. Carl, carried. Thank you. Just make a note to myself to raise that with Kevin. Moving on to the, where are we? To the report. So page 22. The Three Waters Governance Report. Who will speak to this? Is this Matt and?
I'll speak to that. Yes, that's correct. Again, just taking the report as read and highlighting some of the key actions out of the report. So last month, in August, we unfortunately did have our first lost time injury since December 2020. This was as a result of production work where there was the cleaning of the UV and equipment, and unfortunately, as that was happening, the person, their glove broke, and they actually had cuts on their hands, which became infected and caused and required them to have 2 days off and antibiotics. So we've reviewed what occurred. The plant itself and the nature of it is one of the ones that we will be looking to replace, and the equipment and the accessibility of it is poor. And so the actions that the team have to do the cleaning of the nozzles on the equipment is something that does result in that level of risk. But obviously the actions with the team is to ensure that they don't have cuts or abrasions while they're doing that work, and they take more care around how they clean the nozzles. But unfortunately, this is one of the risks that does come with dealing with wastewater. I'm not sure if there's any other questions around that. The other aspect is obviously all performance measures were achieved in August, which was great. A good result, sorry. And we did have a large outage, not outage to customers, but a large incident at the Tikawhara plant where where the pipe from the plant to the reservoir, so that was treated water, failed. You can see the photo on the front of the report. It failed in a very unusual spot and on a 90-degree bend, which is quite a difficult repair to make. So the team worked, and this was just after the COVID lockdown occurred. So the team worked really well to maintain separation and to do the work and to get the parts for what was quite an unusual repair to get that up and running. And we were thankfully able to do that with absolutely no disruption to customers, which was a great result as well.
Matt, can I interrupt just while you're on that?
Yeah, David. Yep.
Is there any reason why hard hats aren't being worn?
In this particular case, they weren't required for the work that the team were doing, so that is the main reason. There was nothing above them to drop from height to cause the risk. One of the other questions I asked, because we have had some issues with the photos we've put up here, was that it wasn't due to the depth, it didn't require any other PPE or work to be done, but the depth of the ditch was under a metre, so it was so yeah, there's a few questions I always raise when I see these photos as well, just to make sure I'm comfortable that everything has been done correctly, but I am, yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Matt on the report? Just had a minor one here, Matt. The gloves. This is the LTI lost time. The gloves. So there's no issue with the quality of the gloves. They don't need to replace. Okay.
No, so that exactly a question I asked as well. I was trying to validate were the gloves suitable for the task, and they are. It is difficult because essentially for what the work they're doing, cleaning nozzles, they need to be able to feel the nozzles and be able to clean them. So they do require gloves that can do that at the same time as that takes away, something thick or something that could be less likely to break. So it's a real balance that the team is striking around being able to do the role and do it correctly, and obviously PPE protection. So the team have confirmed that they believe that is the correct, and as I said, really what we're doing is we'll be looking at the SOP around ensuring there's no cuts or abrasions for anybody who's doing this activity in the future.
Okay, thank you.
We did ask Matt to investigate from a manufacturer's perspective as to whether or not the cleaning procedure was being carried out as per their instruction, and or if there was any ability to modify the plant so that the nozzles could be reached easier. And so Matt was going to go back and have a look at that soon, but early days from that perspective.
Yeah, I have had the initial feedback on that. So in regards to the SOP, I don't believe we do have a manufacturer's SOP for this equipment. Strangely enough, the person who actually had the lost time injury was actually involved with the installation of the equipment when it occurred. But in regards to the design itself, it isn't conducive to being cleaned. It's quite a poor design, and certainly not one that we'd now use in a new plant. So that is something where I think at this stage it's really the focus is going to be awareness, and just as I said, updating our SOP to ensure that it includes that health and safety awareness of cuts or abrasions, due to the nature of the work. But we are going to do a little bit more work on the manufacturers and see if there was any other recommendations.
Thank you. Carol, you had your hand up.
Yes, I was just going to ask Matt if he would mind giving the board an update on the incident we had at the Huntley water treatment plant over the weekend.
Yeah.
Matt had been in contact with me over the weekend, and we've notified Gavin, and he just suggested it might be a good idea to inform the board verbally.
Absolutely, yeah. So on Friday of last week, around midday or just after late midday, there was a large event within the river. So normally the river, so NTU is the level of discoloration within water, and so when we treat water, we treat it to a level of less than 0.1 NTU. Now, the river itself is normally running at what we would call between kind of 8 and 15 NTU. So the scale increases, the worse the quality of the water becomes. And on Friday, we had an event where the river spiked to around 85 NTU, and we actually did a manual test which indicated it was above 100 NTU. So very poor quality water, and the plant unfortunately could not cope with that kind of water quality. So the plant did what it's meant to do, which it shut itself down and stopped producing water. And over the subsequent 3 days, we were working with the plant to try and get it back online. Now, the nature of what came through was very poor, and it affected the filters quite significantly. So we have the 4 levels of protection. So we have the clarifiers, which essentially take the solids out of the water. We have the filters, which then filter through. And it goes into the clear water tank, and then goes through UV to be sent out. So that's a 4-log protection that we have in place for our compliance. So throughout the Friday, the plant was shut down. Then through Saturday, as the team were working on it constantly. So normally this is a remotely managed site, but it was managed full time between Friday and Sunday afternoon. And the team were working to try and get the plant back up and running. This proved to be very difficult. To the best we were able to get the quality back down to was 0.018. Sorry, I know there's a few numbers in this discussion, but and that was above our normal level of compliance. Now, we worked with our compliance team and who manages our water quality, and confirmed that we were able to go to what's called a 3-log system, which means that the water quality would be between 0.3 and 0.01 for a limited period of time whilst we managed the incident. The reason for this is because during that incident and the fact we weren't able to produce water, there was a risk that we were going to run out of water essentially for the Huntley area. So the decision was made to go to the 3-log compliance, and we've been operating at that since Sunday. And the reservoirs are now starting to come back to an acceptable level, at which point we'll be back washing the filters to clean them out, with the expectation of returning to a 4-log and a 0.1 monitoring by Friday of next week. Just to be clear, we are already achieving the 0.1, but obviously we just need to do those final few checks to ensure that the plant doesn't spike or have any other issues. So it's been a very, very busy week for the production team, working there basically every hour, and having staff rotate on and off. So obviously we've been having to manage the wellness and the resting of the staff. And so but overall, again, this work, very similar to the TK, has been done without any impact to the customers, and certainly no impact to water quality to a level which would be unacceptable. So a great result from what is a very poor situation or difficult situation. We'll also, I don't know if anybody has any questions at this stage, but the next stage will be obviously a debrief on the incident. We do need to try and identify where the issue within the river came from. So we'll be working with the WRC around that to ensure that it doesn't happen again. If it was an event that was planned by some party on the river, we need to be much more aware of that in the future and notified. And that will be one of the actions that we'll be working with the WRC on. And then we'll also be looking at any other changes that need to be made to the plant to try and protect against this in the future if there's any options. Are there any questions about the incident? I know that was quite a lot in a short period, sorry.
No real questions from me, just check with Huntley Power Station, because they obviously draw water for water treatment and water treater for their boilers. So I'm aware of a number of incidents over the years, mainly to do with milk factories, which were causing those sorts of issues. So just have a chat with those guys, because they've got very good chemists in there and will understand kind of what may understand what happened.
Yeah, we will. The modelling at the moment has shown that the event didn't occur at Ngaruawahia. It did occur obviously at Huntly, and that's where it seems to have been worst. And then obviously at TK, and then further down at Waikato, we also registered. So we're trying to isolate where it came from. But yeah, absolutely, we'll be talking to a few parties just to understand if they were impacted and what they observed as well, and any behaviours that changed from any of the parties on the river.
Yeah. Huntly's power station has probably got the most sophisticated water treatment plant on the river, mainly because it produces deionised water. So it's just worth having a chat to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's good suggestion. Thanks, Garth.
Good point. David, any questions? Otherwise, I just note that we will get a full debrief of the incident at our next meeting.
Yeah, no, that was just that final comment. Interested to hear what actually is the root cause of the issue, and in particular, then following from that, what needs to be done to prevent the reoccurrence.
Yep, absolutely. Just one last point I didn't make. Sorry. So we did call an incident at in midday Saturday when we weren't able to get the plant back to where we expected to within the time frame we did, and that incident ran till 1 p.m. on Sunday. At which point we were comfortable that we had the situation under control, but obviously there's still some lag measures we're going to be doing.
Yeah, sounds like very good work, guys.
Thank you. No, the team worked very hard. It was a very busy weekend, and apologies to Carol for the late night notifications.
We should pass on our thanks.
I will do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okie dokie. Anything, Eugene, apologies, I didn't see you there earlier. You're comfortable?
No, that's fine.
Okay, right, well, we will, I'll put the recommendation is to receive the report, the Three Waters Governance Report. So can I have someone move and second that, please? Thanks, David. I do that half finger. Second, Garth. All those in favour, keep by aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Ruka, could I just sort of make a comment and thank Matt and the team? I think there's a maturity developing now, and it's good to see these operational reports and just the sheer breadth of the work and
I agree.
The good stuff being done.
Yeah, good point, David. And I actually, Matt, given some of the reports are in the public excluded section, I just want to also highlight for the open meeting the effort that you and the team have gone to report against the impacts on Te Ture Whaimana as part of your analysis and the business cases. So yeah, that's great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciated.
Okay, let's move to the risk register update.
It's Jackie here. I just wonder in the next report whether we can have a bit more focus on stormwater management. The reports are great in what they cover for water supply and wastewater systems, but yeah, it would be really good to have stormwater management, and in particular how that links to land use development proposals reflected in the operations report. Thank you.
Happy to do that, Jack. There is actually quite a large segment in the operations report, which is a cascade. This is a cascade of that report, so happy to include more of that in the governance report in the next one. Andrew provides a lot of detail. There's a lot going on.
Awesome. Right, Keith, sorry. I'm assuming this is you, the risk register.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I think from the risk register perspective, there was no incidents of where a gross score had been increased with a residual score. So everything was either mitigated or left at the same level. The biggest or the newest risk was that of COVID-19 on our supply chain, and Watercare have been planning for those issues, and either been looking at our critical spares and lead time, so max min, and also what the logistics are in respect to freight. So are there any impacts on our capital works projects in terms of delivery? And where there is, in some cases, they've looked at expediency through air freight, just to make sure that the most critical parts are with us, and we're not left in a situation where we can't deal with it with an incident because we don't have the stock on.
Okay. Questions, directors, to Keith about the register?
Well, sorry, Rocky, just wanting to check on logistics. I mean, how big an issue is logistics for you guys right now in terms of delivery of equipment for projects?
Matt, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite a significant one, to be perfectly honest, Garth. So it was quite a risk with the Te Kauwhata projects that Sharon is involved in, and Sharon will be attending a bit later to talk through her business case, so she can possibly give you kind of some examples or an overview of how that's impacted them, which has just meant really trying to go as fast as we can to get the assets ordered and get them in as quickly as we can, because the supply chain has been quite significantly impacted by COVID. Yeah. And I believe we talked about this in our last last meeting as well, which could impact it.
So I guess on a project basis, just be interesting to quantify both time and cost, the impact, so we can get a sense of what we're looking at. So I can, like, stuff that we're doing here, anything bringing in offshore is typically six months delay right now, or 6 months lead time, I should say.
We have had similar timeframes, which we'd normally have expected 4 to 6 weeks, spiking out to 3 to 4 months. Some cases even worse. And really, at that stage, we're then looking at alternative options and what we can do with Watercure Auckland around products and materials.
Yeah, okay. But there's an on-flow impact of that to business and what's achieved and abatement notices and all sorts of stuff. So kind of good to understand what sort of tail those delays might have on what you're trying to achieve.
No, absolutely. I'll talk to Sharon and Peter and the project team and project teams and try and quantify, some of that impact and what it could do in the ultimately delayed delivery, especially as you mentioned with things like abatement notices, etc., where we're really working to get them resolved as quickly as we can.
Could we ask for a specific paper to be included at the next board meeting that covers all those issues? And I was going to make a comment when we got into the closed section that it's good to see that our capital expenditure performance against budget's improving, but for all the reasons we've just discussed, we could start to see some compounding impacts, not only because of cost, but simply supply constraints. So it'd be useful to understand what are the risks we're sitting on in terms of delays for whatever, or cost increases for whatever reason.
And we were able to mitigate them. Absolutely, David. Yeah, we can. As I said, I'll get something produced for the next meeting. That's fine.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Okay.
Can I ask one other question? Sorry, is it all right?
Sure.
So just something would help me, guys, is just, and you made a comment, you check, you make sure your photos and your reports and stuff are right in terms of health and safety. Could you guys provide us sort of like just a document which talks about the sorts of health and safety wellness risks that you're seeing, and also what your minimum requirements or standards are around PPE for respective jobs and things like that? So my example is what's your minimum requirement for PPE? What is it? People have to wear gloves or not, or overalls, or when's a hard hat required? What safety expectations have you got? So just be good to understand, I guess, what your workforce requirements are.
No, happy to do that. What we could possibly do is have our health and safety rep attend the next session and just kind of give an overview So we have our health and safety plans, obviously, that we work with Waikato Council to review and ensure aligned, and then we run our risk register as well for health and safety events, as well as the water safety plans, etc. So there's quite a lot in there, but happy to do that. Obviously, longs is a great example of a requirement that we have on all staff when working in the field.
You expect people to wear gloves or some of those sorts of things. So this is just be useful to. But then we're not critical asking dumb questions. We understand what you're doing.
Absolutely, no, so I think either, and I'll work with Carol with the council's health and safety team as well about who is the best person to present, and we can just run through. I think it's us to run through the requirements, and as you said, just to help inform. Really, that's fine. Happy to do that.
And Matt, sorry, can you just make sure you specifically address the wellness and other issues flowing out of the COVID and lockdowns and restrictions? Because certainly with one other project I'm involved in, we have noticed quite some significant issues arising out of that period that are having to be managed on the work site. So we've seen some incidents that we wouldn't necessarily expect to have seen. So
okay. No, happy to do that. Every project site is required to have their own health and safety plan and show mitigations in line with our requirements around COVID before they're allowed. So you may not be aware. So during level 4, all projects were stopped. We don't do any construction work. So that was the Mary site, other than the fact that it had to be maintained for operational activities. And the desludging is another example where that had to be stopped. So before those projects were allowed to reinitiate, they had to provide how they were going to be managing in line with our expectations, physical distancing and the other COVID requirements. So happy to provide that. But you are right, David. It's been a significant issue across, not just in the field, but in the field and across everywhere, just managing wellness associated with COVID.
And it's some of the household impacts that are then flowing on into the workspace. So it's not just physical risks once they're back at work.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I think so. Jackie, sorry, you've
I
heard you. Yeah.
Yes. Just building on the request for a report around supply chain impacts. I'm really keen to understand where cost escalation within the sector might be affecting our overall work program. I understand that there's been some significant movement just across the board in the sector, and really keen to, I guess, have a bit of a deep dive on what that might mean for our LTP and what's currently funded. And just in the risk register, I wonder if there's a little bit of cleanup to do. There's a couple of risks that probably aren't risks anymore, like the LAS agreement, and whether I think some of the risk statements probably need to be broadened out. But for example, the Raglan wastewater treatment plant, how the discussions around discharge methods might be affecting or redefining some of those risks. It would be really good to just have those broadened out. The other one that I'd be really keen to see is, I guess, the risk around responding to unplanned development, which I understand the district is seeing quite separate from Ohinawai, but just across the board, and how we're responding to that. Kia ora.
Keith, sorry, just before David puts his question, did you have a response to Jackie around just a tidy up of the risk register?
So I'll get onto that. The part of the risk register, I guess, is my learning, just in terms of coming into the business and the quickness in which it needed to be presented. So it's not, whilst I've been through it all, certainly there's some cleanup that can be done, and for next time you'll have it to current. Thanks,
Keith. David?
Yeah, just the other thing that would be helpful is if a risk rating has changed to get either an upward arrow or a downward arrow.
Good point.
So that it helps directors then focus on where the risk score, either the gross or the residual, has changed.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, David.
Sorry, just via the chair, if I could just ask for a little bit of clarification on the unplanned developments, Jackie, just so I understand exactly I understand what we're referring to get some more information on.
Yep, sure. So there's an existing risk statement around incomplete or insufficient asset planning and investment to service growth, and it's specific to Ohinawai. But I'm really keen to see on the risk register that there is a risk of having to service unplanned growth, and just putting that on the radar for the waters business, as well as I'm sure it sits within council business from a land use planning perspective as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry. That's good.
Right. Thanks, Jackie. Okay, so there's a couple of actions to note there. The report on supply chain impact, the general kind of or review by Keith and his team on the risk register. But otherwise, I think it's now, I'm happy to put the recommendation to receive the risk register update. Can I have somebody move and second that, please?
Well, can we just do something on health and safety as well, please?
Oh, sorry, yes, no, I have got that down. Yes, and that's in addition to the risk register, Keith, and noting the wellbeing aspect within that. Okay. So, Garth moves, David seconds, all those in favour, Kimai aye, against, carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Before we go into the public excluded session, Gavin, welcome to the meeting. Just one question for you, Gavin, before we move out of open meeting, is in relation to the action register. Could you just give us a sense, just find it, of it's action item 2. So this is in relation to investigation into forums held by other councils in respect of engagement with mana whenua, iwi and Community Partnerships Manager Sam Tuka to present the vision to the next board meeting. So question is, when can we expect it at the October or the next board meeting, given it's not in today's pack, and just the status of engagement / discussions with mana whenua, including Waikato Tānui?
Yep, sure. So I'll make sure Sam presents to the October meeting. Just to give a bit of an update. So we thought we were, there's two things we need to resolve. The main issue we need to resolve is the issue of remuneration or reimbursement, if you like, for mana whenua forum members. So that's one that still needs to go to council for consideration. And we had this discussion the other day, so I have alerted the council to that. That's one. The second was that at our last JMA meeting, there was discussion with Waikato Tainui raising concerns that they wanted to have a look at the work that Sam had done around the mana whenua forums. And to my knowledge, that we haven't had a firm confirmation of what he was doing. The last conversation I had with Sam, which was probably about a week ago, he said to me that there were a number of other groups who were expressing and felt they should be included in the forums, and he was still working through that. So that's an update, but I'll make sure we get a full briefing from Sam at the next meeting, Brooke.
Thanks, Kevin. Jackie, did you want to follow up on anything relating to that update?
Yeah, I guess it would be good to understand, in lieu of having that coordinated approach, how we are managing mana whenua engagement and participation in our projects right now. I'm not expecting an answer now, but when Sam reports, it would be good to get a clear picture of how it's working now. I'm just looking for, I guess, some comfort that mana whenua are being engaged and are actively involved in the various work work streams that the team are doing?
So I can give you a general answer at the moment, and that is that we are engaging. So, and you know the backgrounds around Te Kauwhata. So we've been having ongoing discussions with Namuka. We've also been having ongoing discussions with I can't remember the name of it, but Tawira Nikau's group as well. And then if I think about, and also Waihi Whanui as well, a little bit to do with Waihi Whanui as well. In terms of Raglan, we are having ongoing conversations on a number of things there, in terms of the, obviously the Raglan wastewater consent process, but also other projects that are going on that we're looking at. And I'm speaking more generally in terms of from a council perspective, such as work that's going on around the Raglan airfield. And so we've been talking to Tainui o Tainui, and also talking to Ngāti Mahanga as well. So, so there is engagement going on. It's not as structured as we would like, but we are certainly trying to make sure that we do engage with the right people and get the right advice or information that we need in terms of feedback, etc.
Gavin, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's in terms of that structure, that's largely what Sam will bring to the October meeting. I mean, ultimately, it's up to those parties, those mana whenua groups we've identified to participate within that proposed structure. And so we'll receive that presentation next month, but it is pleasing to note that engagement nonetheless is occurring with the relevant mana whenua groups.
Yep.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just following on from that, I guess as part of the design process that Watercare follow, it would be really good to understand what their linkages are with our Te Tiriti partners as well. So, you know, Huntly, Orahui Pōkeka wastewater treatment plant concept design is underway. I'd be really interested to know what engagement is happening on, I guess, the direction that we're heading and Watercare designers are heading. What input mana whenua are having to, I guess, those early design principles and approaches that are being taken forward in the technical work. So just, I guess, another element of the report at the next governance week.
Did you want to respond to that, Matt?
I'll probably, again, it's probably one of the examples that we'll get the project team to get more involved and give more background to. Jackie, obviously, I'm aware that there was significant involvement for Mary, and that I believe was very positive. I know Raglan to date has been very detailed and lots of engagement and quite positive as well. But in regards to the design itself, maybe we can give more of an update when we talk about some of the other aspects we've talked to from the project team at the next meeting, and just give you some more clarity on how that engagement's coming about and progressing, specifically in relation to design.
Yeah, that early engagement is important. It just saves us having to backtrack later on.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, just a question then. So the Metro Wastewater Project, which is looking at wastewater solutions for, Waipa, Hamilton and Waikato District, are already setting criteria for wastewater treatment, or have set criteria for wastewater treatment. How do those design criteria, do they not flow across to the balance of other installations that are going on? So I'm kind of a little confused as to why we would do this again and again and again when we already have a district-wide solution being, the parameters set for a district-wide solution. So I don't know. I'm just asking the question. It's a lot of money to continue to reinvent the wheel.
That's a good point. And you've got, I'm assuming, mana whenua or Te Tiriti partner engagement at that district-wide level to set those, yeah.
So perhaps Jackie can answer that at the next meeting as well, but I'm just wondering why we would just keep doing the same thing over and over again up and down the community.
I guess one of the things that I'm really keen to understand and see is that consistency, Garth, because I'm not sure that is being applied across the board, and also the consistency of approach. So, technical design standards is one aspect. There's much more to it than that, I believe, and the local input and local voices is important. I've got the same questions around Te Kaupata as well, around future-proofing the designs to set that community up to achieve the longer-term vision that's been established through some of the sub-regional sort of work. But,
I guess I understand that, and I think the Metro Wastewater project could set the minimum design criteria for the quality of water which is discharged through a wastewater treatment plant. I think it's doing that, but I don't understand why that wouldn't be applicable as you already are applying it to Waikato, Hamilton, and Waipa. So again, you've got full mana whenua engagement across the community. So why can't we? I'm just asking the question really. Is there an opportunity to plug into that and save a lot of time and cost associated with design work and engagement, through that work that we're already engaged with and paying for? So, I don't know. I'm just asking the question, really. I just don't like waste, really.
Thanks, Garth. I think that's something we can pick up at the next meeting as an action item, Jackie. In terms of your role, I'm assuming you still remain with the Metro Wastewater Project, and how?
I guess there's a more general conversation that I'm keen to have, and that's how we're linking our business, so our sort of operational business and the design work that's going on with the higher level strategic thinking that's happening across the region, because I do think there is a bit of a disconnect there. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
No, good point. I think that's really at the crux of what Garth is saying, and how do we coordinate and get connected, given there is this district-wide planning work that is being carried out. So if we could, who am I looking at? Who is this something, Roger, that you can pick up as an action item to look at what's happening across in terms of the Metro Wastewater Project and how our specific work program aligns to that, or at least,
Yeah, look, I'm happy to have some conversations and try and understand a bit of detail around the linkages between the two. I hear the conversation, I know the question being asked, and definitely look into that.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Roger. Great, well, good discussion. We just note that action item for discussion at the next meeting around the consistency of approach from that district-wide level and what we are doing at our water business operations level. So with that, so just note that update to the action register. That was the reason why we're having this conversation. So I will now move to go into the public excluded meeting for the reasons outlined on page 44, and also request that the water care team who are currently on this call remain with us for the public excluded session. Anything else I need to add to that, Matt, Democracy team?
No, that's fine.
Matt will also add Sharon Dank, so she'll join too.
Okay.